It's a blessing to be able to share this moment with all of you all today. Thanks to everybody who came before us. Shout out to Community Board 10. Shout out to Lenny. Community Board 11, sorry. Shout out to Lenny for that spirit and for that. We just want to start off by saying we love you all. We come from a spirit of love and loving our peoples. We are babies of the Black Liberation Movement, particularly the 1970 prison rights movement, the new prison movement. That's the political prisoners or the community members who became political prisoners that got pushed into prison in the late 60s, early 70s, and they developed cadres and youth development and resurrection processes in prison to heal people like myself and other people who were internalizing the psychological warfare, which some people call mental health, and was internalizing white supremacy and enacting behaviors that was anti-African, right? Anti-Harlem, anti-Brownsville, anti-Mississippi, right? And through teachings and pedagogy and organizing, they was able to transform a lot of people, men and women, across the prison system in New York and across the country. So we start off with that love right there. Shout out to H.O.L.L.A. We got our team here, Jasiri, Diva, Richard, Bruce, Kumi. They already shared a lot of the wisdom that we just gonna echo, so shout out for them for already dropping a lot of the legacy in the building. We are people from the neighborhoods. We from Harlem, we from Brownsville, we from Southside Jamaica, we from Corona, we from Brooklyn, we from the South Bronx, we from Yonkers. Our mothers and our family members grew up in these neighborhoods. We sold drugs, we used drugs, we still in the recovery process as individuals and as a community and as a family. So we come to this conversation not only as PhDs, not only as people who study the legacy, but people who are living through the legacy and constantly living through the legacy. So we echo what the brother Lenny said because we come from that resurrection process where we transformed those behaviors and became to go back on the street to continue doing the work. And that's what the Black Panthers were. They were a youth formation. Most of them were under 25. And a lot of them was into crime, generative attitudes, street activities. And it was elders in the neighborhood that trained them, took that psychosis out of their brain, out of their system, and they started serving the elders. They started serving the people, right? So we come from that spirit of resurrection. Before we get going, I just want to give a quick libation. Quick libation. We're going to be throwing some names out here just to get us grounded. We want to talk a little bit about worldview. We want to get into a little bit about history, and then we want to show how that relates to some of the work that we're doing right now. How much time I have? I still got 12 minutes? We're on time. So we got 12 minutes. Keep me posted, keep getting me look. So this is just a light libation. We come from African sacred science, meaning that we come from Pan-African indigenous philosophies and spirituality that transcend at least 3 million years, right? So we pull from Kemet, we pull from the Dogon people, we pull from the Akan people, we pull from the Dismal swamps in North Carolina, we pull from Virginia, we pull all the way to Asada Shakur, right? So we pull all of our lineages from African sacred science to fight the African Mayafa, to Black liberation struggles, and we ground that in healing justice. Right, that we got to heal ourselves and be in a constant journey with healing ourselves. And through that healing is how we heal our families and how we heal our community. It starts with that healing first, right? All right. So this is a libation, man. This is for our ancestors.
Yes.
We said, this is for your ancestors. Right? We said, this is for our ancestors.
This is for our ancestors.
Right? So we just want to throw that out there, and particularly the ones that stand with us and plan with us. We talking about a pedagogy of patience. And they still waiting for your transformation and for you to heal from all the steel blazing And generation after generation of living out our own plantation, we said this is for our ancestors. Ashe. Ashe. So let me just throw out some of the names, man. We want to shout out Ella Baker. Ella Baker's in the room today. We're going to bring a lot of Ella Baker wisdom. We want to shout out Sheikh Anta Diop. We want to shout out Dr. Amos Wilson, who's from Harlem, who's right here in Hunter College. We want to shout out Baba Sekou Odinga, right? The Black Panther Party, Panther 21, Black Liberation Army, Free Assata Shakur. We want to shout out Dr. Matula Shakur, right? Right here in the Lincoln Hospital, right here in East Harlem, taking over the People's Church, right? The Republic of New Africa we want to shout out. We want to shout out the Third World Alliance, the Black Liberation Women from the Black Panthers and from the Young Lords who understood sexism, who understood imperialism, who understood global capitalism, but didn't run to the traditional white supremacist institutions. They built their own healing strategies and healed amongst the contradictions with their peoples, and they the ones that developed the triple jeopardy analysis. It wasn't Kimberly Crenshaw. It wasn't Bell Hooks. It was the Black Liberation Women, right? And they did not go to universities to theorize that. They stayed in the neighborhoods. They stayed in the struggle. They built a political prisoner movement, and that was central to mental health. That was central to fighting against interpersonal violence. That was central to teaching us and our next generation how do we negotiate violence within our families that's predicated on the system who gave that violence to us without running back to the system for help, right? Right? Without running back to the system for help. Shout out to Queen Mother Moore. So, how much time I got?
8 minutes.
8 minutes. So, real quick, we just want to say that we can't define violence and mental health the way that it's traditionally defined. So in our African worldview, we define it in a larger analysis. Some of our comrades talked about the African Mayafa, right? And that's an African Swahili word developed by our elder, Dr. Marie Bogani, right? A student of John Henry Clark, right here at Hunter College, right? And it's an African-centered critique to European thought, European system, European ideology. And it talks about how when African people apply European thought and ideology and programs to African lifestyles and African experiences, you often do more damage than good.
Yes.
Right? So we talk about the African Mayafa, which is a long analysis of violence that encompasses mental health, what some people call mental health, but much more. And it talks about the killing of African people.
Yes.
Right? It's separating the African people from source, from meiotic source, from African spirit. Right? And the splintering of our identities, of ourselves, of our relationships. You know, men over here, women over here, children over here, them over there, addicts over there, we over here, violent offenders, non-violent offenders over here. Right? You can't, then they add this to policy and now these people can't stay. Now your family can't stay with you, right? Right? Now after the social services agencies that added all of these different splinterings and up the policy, when we try to build with our family, now our cousin can't live with us. Now our moms can't live with us, right? Because we be in violation of our services. We be in violations of our health, the things that give us wellness, right? Which is actually taking away our wellness because as an African person and people, our wellness starts with our family. The family institution is how we build civilization. And from building the family institution, we built many family institutions, which built us a tribe, or built us a community. And from the community level, we built national levels. Yes. Right? From the national level, we took this African civilization ship all across the country, all across the world. But the start of it starts with the nucleus of the family. Right? So that's really important. Part of this illness creates what our elder calls Yorugu. Right? When our African spirit, our African worldview is separated, our spirit is separated from ourselves, and a new spirit becomes in ourselves. We call it psychological warfare. We call it colonization, misinformation, right? The killing of our elders, the killing of our leaders, right? We call it social engineering. I would say Harvard, Oxford, Yale, Columbia, they tell us that the Greeks are the first philosophers. It's a lie. That's a lie. This is social engineering. This is also anti-African, anti-black, because instead of children realizing that their ancestors, that their lineage developed healing, developed practices for mental wellness, survived disasters and continue building family, they just tell us that we criminals. Right? They just tell us that we addicts. They just tell us that we prostitutes, that we jump offs, that we thugs, that we murderers, right? And they do a psychological hypnosis to us where we can't vision. Yes. Right? And when we can't vision and we don't have our African spirit, we are easily manipulated to implement activities and things that are anti-family, anti-community, anti-selves. How much time we got? I don't know. I lost time. That's 4 minutes, bro. 4 minutes. All right, real quickly, I gotta pass this up. What I want to say is that our elders understood some of this. Our elders understood this, and they never talked about mental health or treatment or mental health framing of treatment of addiction from this kind of mental health framework. They said that framework came from the state, it came from the system, it came from white leadership, right? And what it does is it makes everything individual and interpersonal. And it erases the state and it erases international understandings of violence that attack whole communities, that attack whole nations, that underground individual wellness in the first place, right? So these kind of framings erase state violence in the war. And then you just blame my moms, and you just blame me for when there's systematic undoing of our personal wellness. What I also want to say is that, real quick, and I'll pass it off. The Black Panthers, the Young Lords, our elders in the 60s and 70s, before they became political prisoners, they realized what was going on in our communities, and they understood drugs and these things as chemical and biological warfare. Right? They stopped people from being family. Stopped people from being human. And when the American government came to this country in the 1400s, the 1500s, they brought psychological, chemical, and biological warfare with them then. I would say that the coronavirus is psychological and biological warfare, right? And the medical procedures or the non-procedures that follow the coronavirus is part of that psychological and chemical warfare, right? It's to neutralize community, to socially injure, to put us in fear, right? And to kill us, right? So what we did was we said we can't use methadone because we don't want our communities getting off of one drug and being hooked on another drug. Right? Instead of us using heroin in the 70s, when methadone was becoming the #1 treatment for heroin, people was using heroin 8 times a day and was addicted, or 20 times a day. They were trying to put us on methadone so we could just use it once a day but be addicted. Right? And our communities were saying, nah, we want to heal our communities off of all addictions, and we don't want chemical-based treatments for indigenous and African people, right? So they developed acupuncture. Right? They developed techniques. They took over the Lincoln Hospital. Right? And part of what we still need to do right now is we might need to go back to organizing. Right? Organizing against these institutions, even the ones that act like they're doing good for us. And doing some good. Right? Because part of the strategy and the understanding of what I'm trying to say, because I don't have much time, is that a lot of this work came from the people on the ground, 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds, the Young Lords was, 17-year-olds. Right? They went to the Upper West Side, taking TV trucks to bring it to the East Side of Harlem because the East Side of Harlem wasn't getting served with TB tuberculosis shots. The state didn't do that, right? And then they had the medical providers provide service to a long line of East Harlem folks. They went door to door knocking to some of those same housing places that Lenny mentioned, giving out lead testing to children, because at that time, because of the paint, lead poison was killing black, brown, and Asian children. Right? That was them that created these programs, and the state attacked them and took those programs from the youth. Because we talk a lot about youth. From the youth, and actually put it into all these institutions now that we had. And the goal, what I would say that I don't have much time, is that H.O.L.L.A is doing work to try to bring our practices and our teachers back to our families, back to the youth, back to the community, and we would love to build more with the institutions that are out here doing the work to help us figure out how do we build Black liberation, African-centered hubs that develop the leadership of our family and not the leadership of our staff. Right? That develop the leadership of our community lineages and not our academic institution departments. And that we use these institutions and these agencies and these departments strategically for their best that they can offer us to flood community empowerment, right? To develop, and how do we work past our mission and beyond our mission and change our mission, because a lot of our missions keep us focused on single issues, right? Single issues of mental health. Single issues of factors when the war is related to all of these issues, right? So, I'm sorry, Tina, that I didn't get a chance to pass the mic. But what I will close on is say that we are the medicine. We are the medicine. Our grandmothers are the medicine. The nature is the medicine, right? You don't need a Medicaid, or you don't need policy, or you don't need an FRP to get the medicine from African indigenous healing, right? When you look at the pharmacy or big pharma or the medical industrial complex, which facilitates a lot of the funding and the ideas and the structure of the programs that we do in our neighborhood, this is about capitalism, right? This is serving us without serving us to underdevelop us while the system baked off of capitalism, right? So part of our work, this is for all of us. Me, I got a PhD. We got to figure out how we situated in the war, how the institutions are using us in the war, right? And like Asada said, we got to figure out every day how much blackness, how much indigeneity, how much struggle we got in our spirit, that day, because we got to struggle as much as we can every day. And we got to struggle as much as we can every day in the institutions to push the struggle back to our families and back to our people, and that means we got to free our political prisoners. That means all of our work that we're doing, which was developed by people who are now elders in prison, who were young. When we talk about we have really young people, they were young when they started this, and the system locked them up in the 70s and 80s. Now they're 70 years old, 80 years old, and we gotta do programs that they did, and we gotta kind of remix stuff up because we don't know the story. And that's our legacy. We don't know the institutional memory, right? So part of our work is not only studying the work of the young lords, what we call political prisoners, but we actually got to figure out in our institutions, how do we honor that leadership? How do we cite them, right? And how do we create programs within our programs? Because that's the real mental health, right? How do we free the people that try to free us, right? Right, that try to build us these programs, and how do we not let the system say, the people that try to give us wellness, how y'all gonna lock them up and then say y'all trying to help us, right? That's psychological warfare in itself. So thank you again for your time. Thank y'all for your wisdom. Free the land, free all our political prisoners, and struggle starts with us, and we already done won. So let's keep on winning.